You all know Wednesday afternoons I teach at the General Theological Seminary, which, by the way, is just a couple of blocks from where that bomb went off in the city last night. That's the neighborhood I'm in. And I could not help but smiling because I have mostly seniors in my class who are taking this course in Church North. So most of them, as part of their preparation, they're already in parishes working as interns and they're preaching every once in a while. And a half dozen of them or so actually have to preach on this particular reading. And you had to hear the whining that I was hearing in terms of how difficult it is, it doesn't make sense, the commentaries don't help, the professor didn't help, the notes are no good, no one's going to listen, and it's like, all right, if you want sympathy, this is not the face you come to, right? You're going to preach once every 5 weeks, all right? Get over it. When you become a priest, you're going to preach every single week. And it's not always, and Jesus said, love one another, that's easy to preach, right? Or as Mark Twain once said, it's not what troubles me most about the Bible, not the things that I don't understand, it's the things I do. Let me put this all in context and give it because, and no fear from Jenny or Muriel because they were at St. Paul's last night and they know what's coming. First and foremost, put on your Bible tabs. You hear the word parable. Give me a very simple synonym for parable. What is this? What is a parable? A lesson, a story. Okay? It's a way to communicate a truth, and I'm going to tell a story to do it. The best teachers tell stories. That's how we remember. At least that's the best teachers for me. All right. Now, got a couple of high school people here who are sitting in front of me. Forget the church stuff. Put on your math hat. I just want to ask them, what's a parabola? What does it look like? Now, who? A U. An arc of some sort. Thank you. Yes and yes. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Parable is a trajectory, is it not? A parable is getting from point A to point B by going this way rather than straight. You come to the point by a long circuitous route. It's like going from here to Daytona by way of Boston. All right. But you still get there, but the route is difficult and the route kind of takes you out of the way. What you've got this morning in this wonderful, and it is a difficult and wonderful teaching, is Jesus using the medium of telling a story, a parable. And he does so with a system which is very parabolic. And let me explain how this goes. Because this is, we're being taught how we are to live by what not to do. All right. He says, and this is not much of a story that he makes up. This apparently was, unfortunately, life in Palestine for a century. There were a few very, very wealthy landowners. And they own their estates. Most of them, they're absentee because they own more than one. They're extremely rich. On the bottom of the social scale are the sharecropper farmers, who are poor, who basically are trying to eke out a daily life. They're really, literally dirt poor. And in the middle, there's a manager who kind of runs the estate for the boss. All right? Not too different from the plantation system of the Old South. Kind of similar to it in that kind of way. Again, I was very surprised last night at St. Paul's. I was surprised at how many people were aware of this. People who do music, I know you'll know this, but when my dad had a favorite person he used to listen to, he used to play his records, and this is my father's music, not mine, and I was just shocked. Any of you guys actually heard of Tennessee Ernie Ford?
Sure.
Of course?
16 tons.
All right, well, I was a little kid, right? Tennessee Ernie Ford, country singer. And he had this song that I must have heard a zillion times as a kid. My father played it on the record for himself. You know where I'm going? 16 tons. How'd it go? 16 tons, and what do you get?
Another day
over and deeper in death. Same thing. So here don't you go, I can't go. I want my soul to accompany so. You're older than I thought. I hope to get all this hill. Know my soul to the company store. It's a wonderfully cute line. It is diabolic in what it intends. You are in such poverty, such hurt, you have nothing. And what little you can either grow for yourself or sell for yourself, you can't use it anyway because it's all owned by the master king. He owns your soul. They own their soul to the company store. And in the middle of this abusive system, there's the manager. This is the guy who sits up in the big house. He's living in luxury. He's sipping the boss's wine. There's the big old mahogany desk. He's got his feet up on the desk. I was thinking of putting my feet up on the pulpit here. I'd break if I tried to do that. He's decked out in fine clothes, maybe fooling around with the boss's daughter, who knows. He is, as my grandmother would say, it doesn't translate well into English, it's an Italian saying, he thinks who he is. Okay. And what he is, and what he is very good at, is he is an embezzler. He's a thief, and he's really good at it. He's robbing the owner blind. So as Jesus makes up this story, he says to them, all right, imagine the system now. Imagine there's this guy who's robbing the owner blind, and all of a sudden, word gets to the master. He says, you know what? Things at the plantation ain't so good. And if I were you, I'd go and check it out for myself. And if I were you, I would bring an accountant and do an audit. And if I were you, I'd also bring the sheriff and a pair of handcuffs. So he does. Now, here's the beauty of the story. And I hope this will eventually upset you as it does me. Because here's where the lesson comes in. Most of us would have the good enough sense, because we have a modicum of conscience, that we would either try to lie our way out of it, or run, or, see the place. But not this guy. He is so good at what he does as a thief. So what does he do? He doesn't run. He changes the rules of the game. He changes all of the orders. He sits down, and you've got to use your imagination. He calls these poor people in one at a time, sits at the big mahogany desk, takes out his fancy $250 cross pen, and says, Mr. Bryan, how much do you owe the boss? And you're sitting there, wearing your sandals again, and he simply says, 100 measures of wheat or oil or whatever. And he says, oh, no, don't worry about it. It's been cut in half. It's only 50. And he goes through each of the farmers, and he cuts their debt. Now, obviously, the farmers think what? Well, if the manager's doing it, he's doing it because the boss told him what to do. After all, nobody in middle management ever does things without the boss's approval. Stephen starts laughing in the back. Just file that away in parentheses, okay? So the owner comes back, and what does the owner find? He is greeted by this riot of very happy farmers. They cover him with ticker tape, they throw flowers at him, they're going to make a statue of him. And now, because he is so popular, because they think he has cut their debt, he can't fire the manager. Otherwise, he would look bad. This guy is so crooked and so good at it that as Jesus tells the story, the owner congratulates him and says, man, you are the best at what you do that I've ever seen. Now, you can translate that to any political person you want to today. I'm not going there in terms of politics. All I'm saying is, take the scenario as it's played out. And here's two things. Number one, this is one of the few times when Jesus makes any kind of tells a story and he has a teaching and there's a point to it. This is one of the few times he doesn't say, now go and do likewise. The idea is for you not to go out and cheat. That's not the idea. But what he is saying is this, and this is the part that disturbs me and makes me think, and I hope makes you think, as part of his message. He kind of poses the question for his people to consider. Look at the people who are the sleazy, phony cheats of life. And look at how enthusiastic they are in what they do. How much energy they do, how much planning they do, how important this is to them to get what they want, despite of whoever they have to hurt. Doesn't make any difference. Look at how much enthusiasm and power and energy they have to do what's wrong. Would that we as children of light had a fraction of that energy that you've gone to work in the world? That's the point that's being made. That's the other end of the parallel. It's not imitate this guy. That's not the point. But you look at a person like him, and you can translate that into our culture of today, but I would ask you not to be judgmental of others. I want you to look into your own soul. All the things that we're supposed to do in terms of hearing the word and living the word, is it a burden? Is it an annoyance? Is it one more thing I have to do? This is what church is about. Or do I have the enthusiasm in my heart to have at least a modicum of the same kind of energy and passion that those who are filled with hatred